And we are back, Great Lakes State Football, episode 28, talking everything football in the great state of Michigan. And I am Vince.
I'm Kory, and the Lions are back, and I am hype.
And I'm Brett, and it is officially football season. All levels of football.
Oh, that's right. With the Lions starting this week, it's officially full on football. We got high school, college rocking and rolling. Obviously, high school 2 weeks in. Actually, we're on to week 3 here of high school football, and then college. Moving on to week 2, technically 3 if you count that 0 week, I guess, and then NFL starting back up. It's all here, baby. I think I saw something on Twitter that said starting after this week, we will not go without football until what was it,
Super
like
Bowl.
end of February, which is very exciting. We'll have football all the way through the end of February, so that's always an exciting time.
And then the Panthers will start.
Michigan Panthers, baby, springtime football.
The Panthers,
and hopefully they won't suck as bad as they did this last year. Well, with this episode, we are very excited to bring to you guys a short interview. Our hopes throughout the season here between now and the end of the college season is to try and get some high school football players or coaches on, as well as some college football players or coaches here and there. So for this, we reached out to a few people for this episode, and we actually ended up getting on Brett's younger brother, Cole, who is currently playing offensive line at Central Michigan as a grad transfer. So we will have him on a little bit later in the episode to talk about his experience transitioning from Division II to Division I football, what it was like playing down in Oklahoma at Oklahoma State for the home opener. So pretty cool experience there. So that'll be a very short interview a little bit later in the episode. But before we get to that, we are going to recap some of the things that went on around the state of Michigan last week, high school football, college, and then we will talk about our previews as well for this upcoming week for high school and college football around the state. We put out some really cool stuff on Twitter. Brett worked really hard putting together some pretty cool graphics of some of the college football stats from all levels around the state of Michigan. So we'll kind of jump into some of those as well as we get through this episode. But first and foremost, we're going to start with high school football here. So for last week, we made our picks. We had talked about how for each week here during the high school football season that our plan was to kind of go through and pick 5 high-profile games. So we had 5 high-profile games that we picked from last week. I'm trying to share my screen here for those of you that are creeps that like to watch online. So we had 5 games that we picked last week. And once again, I think this is the second week in a row that Brett comes out on top. Right? Or you guys were tied after the first week, I think. So,
but generally he's on top right now, and he had a heck of a week. Oh my God! Applause to Brett, and hopefully he's gonna start giving us all gambling advice, so that way we can win some money.
If only I was as successful on DraftKings as I was in high school football.
Oh goodness. So yeah, quite a round of picks here for Brett that pulls him into a 2-game lead over Kory and I, and a 1-game lead over Goose Poop. We're going to keep track. Goose Poop, as we mentioned last week, we don't already follow him on Twitter or Instagram. Give him a follow, subscribe to his newsletter. Goose Poop is doing a lot of really cool stuff for Michigan high school football in terms of his through the numbers algorithms and his computer model and all that. A lot of cool stuff that he's putting out. So follow him if you like high school football. So Goose Poop through 2 weeks is 7-3. With his picks. Kory and I are 6-4, and Brett is 8-2. So last week, our 5 games were Muskegon versus Warren De La Salle. We were unanimous in picking De La Salle, and they did win. Goose Poop also picked De La Salle. De La Salle beat Muskegon 49-16, which I was pretty surprised by that blowout. I think that we'll talk about what stuck out about these games at the end. We won't go. We'll go through all 5 games really quick, and then we'll talk about it at the end. Number 2, we picked Hudson versus Constantine. Goose Poop, his model had Hudson, and so did Brett. Kory and I went with Constantine, which I guess would have kind of been an upset. Constantine is 2 divisions bigger. And Hudson was the defending state champs in Division 8. But it was a very close game. Hudson won by 2 points, 22-20. Our number 3 game was DeWitt versus Portland. This was a heck of a game. DeWitt ended up winning. All 4 of us picked DeWitt, and DeWitt ended up beating Portland 39-34.
In the last minute.
Last minute, DeWitt scored with 19 seconds left, because actually Portland was winning 34-33 with 1 minute left, and then DeWitt went down and scored with 19 seconds to
trick play, halfback pass.
Pretty crazy. Number 4 was Lapeer versus TC Central. And of the 4 of us, Brett was the only one that got this right. Goose Poop, myself, and Kory all had Traverse City Central winning. This was a shootout with 98 points scored. Lapeer won 56-42. And our last game of the week was a unanimous pick, and we were all correct. We picked Rockford to beat Mona Shores, and that was another crazy game. Rockford was actually losing this game 27-7 with about a minute and a half left in the third quarter. And then Mona Shores snapped a punt through the back of their end zone to make it 27-9, and from there it was all Rockford the rest of the way. They scored 22 unanswered points, so that was a pretty crazy game there as well. Of these 5 games, between our picks and the outcomes, anything that sticks out to you guys from our games of the week last week?
Take it, Brett.
I thought it was, 2 of the 5 games that we picked, that's what, 40% of the games we picked were essentially almost last minute games. So they truly were the top games in the state. I know a couple of them were blowouts. The Warrendale-LaSalle game, like Vince, you said, versus Muskegon, that was a little surprising to me. Muskegon doesn't seem like they're the power that they've been in the past. They're still a great ball team, but they've had a little bit closer games this year than they have traditionally. And Warrendale-LaSalle, they're really good this year.
I think it means they're very good.
I think they're really a really good football team. And as per usual, the up north school, TC Central, they always struggle to play some of the powerhouses of the bigger schools of Southern Michigan. It's a different style of football, but no, I thought it was a great week of football. Looking forward to our picks this week in week 3.
Yeah, no, I'll second you, Brett. I think the Muskegon Warrendale-LaSalle game, I can't believe it got out of hand like that, but it is what it is. DeWitt Portland, another great matchup between those 2 crosstown rivalries. They're just completely opposite when it comes to the type of communities, which cracks me up. Fun fact, apparently the hot dogs and popcorn are like outrageously priced at the DeWitt at DeWitt's concession stands. They're trying to pay for that turf field or just not utilizing their taxpayer dollars. But no.
So you need to eat before you go to a DeWitt football game.
Yeah, do not get a hot dog at a DeWitt football game. Jesus Christ. But
wait, so
yeah.
were you at that game then?
No, I didn't go to the game, but it's outrageously expensive when your grandparents say something about it.
Oh boy, that's very true.
They're like, at least our taxes didn't go up. I'm like, holy shit. So
that's very, very true.
Yeah.
All right. With that, are you guys ready to get into our games of the week for high school football for week 3?
Yes,
let's
sir.
do it.
Pretty crazy to think that after this weekend, we are 1/3 of the way through the regular season for high school football. It goes by very, very quickly. So with this week, these are the 5 games. If you're watching on YouTube, I have pulled up on the screen here the 5 games that we decided were our 5 games of the week for this week. And we will go ahead and make our picks. Do we have Goose Poop's picks, or we'll have those at the end of the week when we post this? Hopefully, right? Because he hasn't. Yeah,
we'll send it to him. We just pick these games now. So.
Oh, right. So we'll get Goose Poop's picks when we post this on social media, and obviously when we recap it next week, we'll have Goose Poop updated in there as well. But for our first game, we have Rochester Hills Stony Creek versus West Bloomfield.
As much as I'd like to see the Cougars of Stony Creek, that's my wife's alma mater. I think that West Bloomfield is going to go in there and win that game. Bloomfield's got a ton of firepower. They got a guy going to Michigan, 2 guys going to Michigan, actually. A guy going to Michigan State, and I'm sure there's few and far between all the way down to the D2 level. So I'm going to pick Bloomfield here.
I'm also going to take West Bloomfield. I don't think it's going to be close.
Yeah.
Rochester Hills has just blown some people out this year. They played Mumford first game, but they also scored a lot of points last week, too. I can't remember who they played, but
Bloomfield Hills, 42-7. Yeah, they beat 2 teams handily that aren't like traditional powers or anything like that. But I also think I'm going to go with you guys here and keep this unanimous to West Bloomfield. Although I will say last year they did give West Bloomfield some trouble. It was a 24-10 loss for them last year. So it's not like they got blown out when they played them last season. I just feel like West Bloomfield has been too good as of late. So
Did you say 42-10 was the score?
what's their game last season?
Yeah.
24-10. So it was close.
Okay.
It was two score game, 24-10. So sorry if I misspoke. No, yeah. So 24-10, West Bloomfield beat them last year. And so yeah, 2-score game last year. So I have a feeling that they'll be competitive, but I just think West Bloomfield, has been too good as of late.
You want to add our picks there, Vince?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Sorry about that.
I'm off camera because I'm eating, so I'm sorry.
Do you want to just put WB?
That works.
WB, baby. So we got West Bloomfield all across the board here. All right, our next game, we have a game from the UP. We thought it'd be fun to kind of mix it up and try and find some relatively known schools in the Upper Peninsula playing some football this week. A couple schools that people know about. Iron Mountain, alma mater of the great Tom Izzo, will be playing Houghton this week. Houghton is 2-0. Houghton's coming off a 5-4 season last year. Obviously 2-0, pretty good start there. Iron Mountain is traditionally a really good football school in the Upper Peninsula. They were in the semifinals 3 years ago, and they make the playoffs just about every other year. They were in the district final last year, regional final the year before. So Iron Mountain is 1-1 right now with an opening loss to Negaunee, who is 2-0, and also another team that tends to make the playoffs every year. So some good Upper Peninsula football. Who we got, fellas?
I'm gonna go with Houghton. I can't pick anything with Tom Izzo's name on it, so I'm gonna go Houghton.
I'm also gonna go with Houghton, and it's not because of Bomb Thizzo, but just because I think it's Houghton's year to win the UP.
I'm going to be different here, and I'm going to go with Iron Mountain. Iron Mountain, like I said, their week 1 loss is to a Negaunee team that's traditionally really good. So I'm pretty sure that Iron Mountain's a little bit more battle tested than Houghton. Houghton's for the first 2 teams that Houghton beat are 1-3, so they're not exactly very good competition there. So I'm going to go with Iron Mountain. So Brett and Kory are both Houghton, and I am going with Iron Mountain, baby. Our third game of the week, Byron Center versus Forest Hills Central, 2 playoff teams as of late, out of the Ottawa-Kent Conference, not the OK Red, but one of the smaller Ottawa-Kent conferences. What are we thinking here?
I'm going to go with Rangers of Forest Hills Central. That's my hometown team. Forest Hills is 2-0 right now. They beat I think it was Portage Central pretty handily, and they also, who else did they beat? Jennison's a pretty good football team too, and they won 29.
Division 1 in the OK Red, yeah.
Week 1. I don't think they're D1. I think they're D2.
Jennison's D1 this year.
Oh, they did move up.
I was looking today. Yep.
And then Byron Center, traditionally a really good football team. They won in overtime the first week against Battle Creek Central, and then lost to a really good Granville team last week. But I'm
Granville's very good.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Forest Hills.
Kory.
So just looking at this, I am also going to go with Forest Hills. Just a little bit different caliber of a team, different divisions as well. So,
aren't they both D2? I thought they were both D2 schools.
So no, I don't think so, because Byron Center plays like the Lowells, Greenvilles, East GRs, Northview, and Forest Hills Central plays.
They were both in the D2 playoffs last year.
I meant more like different.
They're
divisions.
a different, in the Ottawa-Kent Conference. Byron Center's. No, they're the same.
I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot. Then disregard. I'm actually going to go with Byron Center. Screw you, Brett. I'm coming for blood.
I think I'm also going to go with Forest Hills Central. Battle Creek Central is not a very good football program. They've had almost no success in the last 10 years. They have one playoff season in 2018 since 2008. So I am going to go with Forest Hill Central here as well. So hopefully I'm right, but we'll see what
Hopefully
happens.
you're not eating hot wings and giving out compliments.
And then having diarrhea. Oh, I guess we should mention
that's normal.
That's going to be pretty normal. All right, so the next game, Macomb Dakota versus Anchor Bay, two undefeated Division I teams.
I am going to go with Macomb Dakota.
Kory?
The bigger school.
I'm also going to go with Macomb Dakota, bigger school. I think they have the upper hand.
And it's a home game for them.
Yeah, this is the first time I think that they're playing each other in the MAC Red. Macomb Dakota has been in the MAC Red for a long time. Anchor Bay was actually a non-conference game for Macomb Dakota last year. They used to be in the MAC White. So they changed divisions in that conference. I am going to go with Macomb Dakota as well. They played Anchor Bay twice last year and beat them handily in the regular season and in the playoffs. They played a non-conference game last year, and it wasn't really close. So they actually haven't been beaten by Anchor Bay in quite some time looking through their schedule here. So I'm going to go with Macomb Dakota as well. Did you guys both say Macomb Dakota?
Yep.
Unanimous pick here from Great Lakes State football. And our last one, some more small school football here, Ithaca versus Saginaw Novell.
I'm going to go with Ithaca. Ithaca lost last week to Standish Sterling, who they also lost to last year. Standish Sterling has their number.
Close game both times, too.
Yeah, but then Ithaca beat Novell 43-8 last year. The game is going to be a home game for Ithaca. Ithaca's got a great stadium off of US 127 if you've never seen it before.
Brand new turf field.
School. Yep. So I'm going to go with Ithaca.
Yeah, I'm also going to go with Ithaca. Brand new field. The whole community will be there. And it's actually a fairly close game. They're not far, about 20, 30 minutes. So.
Yeah.
I got to – sorry, I had to laugh. Kory's like, I'm going to go with Ithaca. They have a nice field.
No, I said a new field. Their whole community will be there.
Yeah, I got
They'll have their pitchforks and freaking fire. Yeah, their fiery sticks.
I'm also going to go with Ithaca. I don't really see Ithaca losing back-to-back games. I'm sure they'll be ready to go. They'll be fired up and ready to win that home game. So. All right. So those are picks. We'll get Goose Poops picks in there as well for next week. And I got one. It looks like one opportunity this week to make some ground on Brett. And Kory has one opportunity as well. The games are second and third picks there. So see what happens. We got the college picks as well to add up. All right. And I think that wraps up, gentlemen, if I'm not mistaken, our high school talk for this week. And we're going to go ahead and transition into the college level here for the next part of the podcast. First thing we want to talk about are the games that we profiled last week. We had 5 games that we thought were some of the games from each division that you should be paying attention to from this last weekend in college football. And then we made our picks for those 5 games, who we thought were going to be the winners. So those 5 games and the results were, we had our number one game of the week last week was Grand Valley versus Colorado School of the Mines. That was a top 5 matchup in D2, which was not only was it a great game, but it ended up being very, very close. So Grand Valley pulled that one out 25-22. The number 5 over the number 4 school team in the country, both playoff teams from a year ago. And all 3 of us picked Grand Valley. We all were correct with that one. Our next game was a D3 matchup, MIAA team Hope College playing a playoff team from last year, Aurora out of Illinois. Aurora did make it to the playoffs. and Hope hosted them. And Hope had a big comeback win. I think scoring something like 17 unanswered points, something like that. I think they were down 34-21 and scored 17 straight to win 38-34. And Brett was the only one who picked that correctly. Kory and I both thought Aurora would pull that one off, and Hope proved us wrong. Number 1, Ferris State, the defending D2 national champs, also hosted a playoff team from a year ago, Central Washington. Ferris won by 2 scores, 36-20. Pretty weird game that we had mentioned last week was one of our NAIA schools here in the state of Michigan, Concordia Ann Arbor, who's actually, as of last week, I didn't see what they're ranked this week, but last week they were ranked number 6 in the nation, NAIA. They went down to Florida and played Stetson University, who's actually a Division I AA, an FCS school, and actually held their own, lost 24-14. We were actually pretty surprised with that score. In our last game of the week, we had Central Michigan going down to Stillwater to play Oklahoma State. We all picked Oklahoma State. Oh, the last one we all picked Stetson. Excuse me, I didn't mention that. But we also all picked Oklahoma State, and they did win. And what ended up being a shootout, over 100 points scored, 58-44. Anything stand out to you guys from our games of the week last week?
All really good games. Nothing, and you know what I mean? None of the games were one-sided. GVSU played a good game. Hope played a good game. Even Ferris kept it semi-close. And the shocker, like you said, Vince, Concordia versus Stetson. I'm shocked they kept that close, but that's good. I mean, that's good for NAIA football in the state of Michigan.
I thought it was a big win for Grand Valley. That was a really close game. I was following it on Twitter. It sounded like they were potentially going to lose early on in the game. Well, not lose, but they were kind of backs against the wall. But Lumber Stadium is a tough atmosphere to play in, especially week 1. All the students are around. But then when you come out of halftime, 80% of the students are gone and they're off to their next party. So the second half can be a grind in Allendale. So GVSU was able to pull that out. The surprise for me, it's not on paper here, but the over-under for the Oklahoma State Central Michigan game was 58 points. Vegas was crazy wrong on that. I actually won a decent amount of money there with picking the over. And like Vince said, there's over 100 points scored in that game. So Vegas is not always right. But no, great slate. Those were all really good games, even though Central on paper looks closer than the game was.
So with that, what we're going to start doing, last week I had went through the games, that were being played from last week. So just really quick, we're going to kind of give our thoughts on just some other games here that we thought were worth mentioning from around the state of Michigan. There was one thing that I want to put out there before we move on that I thought was pretty crazy is the MIAA schools. So we have 7 MIAA schools. 6 of them are in Michigan. Trine is the only one not in Michigan. Of the 7 schools in the MIAA, only one of them lost last weekend. That was Adrian lost to Heidelberg, and Heidelberg was actually nationally ranked. So that Adrian lost to a really good team. But even Trine and all the other MIAA schools all got victories. So that's pretty cool. Anything else stand out to you guys about the MIAA, or Finlandia is another D3 school in the state of Michigan that does not play in the MIAA, but brings us up to 7 D3 schools in the state of Michigan.
I don't want to attack Madonna's manlyhoods in the NAIA, but they got beat pretty handily, 86-0 against Marion. So we just got to recoup, bring it back. But
I will say, I think Marion
was shellacking.
I think Marion was ranked like 4th or 5th in the nation. They're like usually an NAIA national championship competitor, I'm pretty sure.
And so now Madonna gets to play Division II Northwood.
Who just put up 55 points on a D2 school.
But no, something else that stuck out to me was how bad Albion beat Carthage College. Carthage went 3-7 last year, so they're a team that has a pulse, and they have a pretty tough conference that they play in. One of the teams that they played last year was ranked number 1 in Division III, North Central College. But that nonetheless, Albion's one of the better teams in the MIAA, but 52-0 is a pretty solid win. It was good to see KZU College win too. I know KZU College, I think almost all of us predicted them to be last place in the MIAA. So starting off the season with the W, that's great.
No, and that's a good card. I mean, Carthage has historically struggled, and they're actually in Wisconsin with a lot of those Wisconsin powerhouses. So, fun fact.
I think one that really sticks out to me is Alma beat Ohio Northern. Ohio Northern's in the same conference as Mount Union. And Ohio Northern has had years where they've competed with Mount Union in close games and even made the playoffs as an at-large bid from that conference. And Alma beat them 16-13 in overtime. So I thought that was really, really impressive outing by our D3 schools here in the state of Michigan to go. I guess if you count all 7 D3 schools, they went 5-2, 5-2. So pretty cool. D2, anything stick out to you guys? Obviously, we just mentioned the Grand Valley and Ferris State games being huge national matchups with ranked teams. All 4 teams in those 2 matchups were playoff teams from a year ago. So obviously, those are big games. Anything else stand out to you guys?
Davenport beating Truman State. That was a surprise to me.
I was going to say round of applause for the entire D2 football in the state of Michigan. I mean, only 2 losses in all those games. McKendree won an OT. Yeah. Upsetting Northern Michigan, and then Wayne State lost to Slippery Rock, who's a national powerhouse year in, year out. So
Truman State was really good last year, and Davenport not so much. They went 9-3, and they're a solid team. That might be Davenport's biggest win since they've been.
That was at Truman State.
Yeah, in Missouri. Yeah, down in Missouri. It's a big win for Davenport. Yeah, so like Kory said, we have 9 D2 football schools in the state of Michigan, 7-2. In D2 football here. So that's really cool to see. The only losses being Northern Michigan in overtime to a decent McKendree team out of the GLVC. And then, like Kory said, Wayne State at Slippery Rock, who is nationally ranked. So that's a good team. So moving on to D1. Do we just want to I know obviously we're going to preview our games here in just a second, but anything that sticks out to you guys from our D1 matchups last week before we move on to our picks of the week for this next week?
Just an applause for CMU putting up a good fight at Oklahoma State. Obviously Michigan State did their things. Also an applause to Western Michigan putting up a fight against Michigan State. That's a tough opponent. The stadium was pumped up for Coach
that was
Tucker
it was a sold out game. It was packed crowd, and Western Michigan I didn't think we were texting during the game. I didn't think Western Michigan looked all that great in the first half, and I thought when it was 21 to, I think it was 21 to 3 or 21 to 7. I think it was 21 to 7. I thought MSU was going to roll 21 to 3. It was 21 to 3. They got a field goal early, and I thought MSU was absolutely going to roll them and give them credit, man. Western Michigan hung in there and
freshman
quarterback.
He looked like a freshman.
He did. He looked like
tiny.
a freshman, but he made some plays.
Yeah, he had poise though. He had some poise. What stuck out to me, you don't see it on paper here, but I was really surprised with the way that Michigan's defensive line played this past weekend. Colorado State, while they're a smaller school, they're not quite a mid-major. They're kind of a weird conference in the Mountain West. But there's somebody that traditionally makes a bowl game. And they beat them 51-7. Michigan had 7 sacks in that game, which is impressive considering they had 2 first-round draft picks leave their defensive line. So that's probably my biggest surprise out of all these games is the way that Michigan's defensive line performed.
What was interesting about that Colorado State offensive line, just to kind of go in a different direction, they had a big sloppy O-line for a team that runs like the air raid spread. It was super weird.
They had a new coach. Their new coach is here. He came from Nevada, which you guys saw him play. I think coach one of his last games at Nevada. Yep. In the Motor City. It's not Motor City Bowl anymore. But the bowl game in Detroit at Ford Field, and they had Carson Strong quarterback. I think the Eagles just cut him, Philadelphia Eagles. But that's a weird tangent I'm getting on right now. But yeah, I think that might be why they just don't have their recruits in place.
Yeah, it was just interesting to see air raid offense with some sloppy jalopies at O-line. So.
Some sloppy jalopies. All right. With that, we want to move on. Brett, did you want to quickly just kind of mention what you're putting out on Twitter, Instagram, or any takeaways from your stats, your graphics that you made?
Yeah, so we put out a number of different graphics today on Twitter. They were well received by our following base. But essentially, I posted the top performing passing, rushing, receiving, interceptions, team defense, and team offense leaders for the week. That's with every college and pro team in the state. Had a little bit of criticism for the next round. We're going to post the teams in descending order descending order from top to bottom. So the top for quarterback, for example, the players with the top passing yards will be at the top all the way down to the bottom. So one thing that we did when we selected our top five, it wasn't by passing yards, it was more by performance. Did your team get the win? Did you have a good completion percentage? Did you throw touchdowns? So that's just one thing to make note of. But really, I think it's going to be really fun to see how the season progresses, to see some names from NAIA D1, mixed together in the same chart. It's a really neat graphic to look at, and I think that it's going to be something to be fun to follow for the rest of the year. And with the rest of the year, I'm entering these in every single week, and I'll have cumulative stats. So I plan to maybe at the end of every month post who the state leaders are in each category overall for the season. I've also thought about maybe adding specialists to this too. So field goal kicking, which is an area that maybe is often overlooked on the stat sheet, but it's a very important piece of the football team. So with that, I don't have much else. I mean, there's a lot of names on this list that were surprising. I mean, like the quarterback from Hope College, Chase
Do you
Brown.
want to mention? Do you want really quick while you have it pulled up the rushing, receiving, and quarterback? Your number, just your number one, or if you want to go through the number one through five.
I'll go like number 1 and 2. So for quarterback performances, we had Chase Brown from Hope College. He had 456 yards and 3 touchdowns with a 66 completion percentage. Number 2, we had Daniel Richardson, Central Michigan quarterback. He played obviously against a pretty solid Oklahoma State defense, and he had 424 yards and 4 touchdowns. You could argue that maybe he could be above Chase Brown, but Chase Brown got the win. So that's why I went Chase Brown number 1. For rushing, we have Nisianinu Crowell Jr. I butchered his first name. I apologize. From Olivet. And he had 122 yards and a touchdown, 7.6 yards per carry. Number 2, we had Jalen Berger, running back, Michigan State, transfer from Wisconsin. He had 120 yards rushing, 1 touchdown, 7.5 yards per carry. One thing that really stood out to me in these rushing performances is we only had 2 guys in the entire state break 100 yards rushing. That's kind of it's surprising to me, but it also isn't. You oftentimes see more running backs by committee now, and there's a lot more passing involved in today's football game. But
I think it's just the state of football in general, right?
Yeah, it just was really surprising because normally you think like someone has a 100-yard game, and it's a good game, but seeing all these stats on paper, it's like, wow, you rushed for over 100 yards. That was the best out of the 20 teams looked at in the whole state.
Yeah, you don't see a lot of workhorse running backs anymore.
No.
The Saginaw Valley running back had a hell of a week too. 82 yards, 3 tutties, 9.1 yards per carry. So
yeah.
He was ripping them off at almost about 10 yards a pop. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just didn't get a lot of carries. They probably split the reps up.
Yeah, when you're up 72-0, it's let everyone get in the game type of game. Receiving wise, number 1, Terrell Harris from Hope College looked to be on the receiving end of most of Chase Brown's passes. He had a really impressive day, 187 yards, almost 27 yards per catch and 2 touchdowns. Must be a big play receiver down in Holland. Isaac Tesla, wide receiver from Hillsdale, number 2 on the list for receiving in the state, 157 yards, good for 22.4 yards per catch and 2 touchdowns.
Go Chargers.
And their win over Lake Erie. Interception wise, we had a tie with 2 guys that had 2 interceptions. Bryce Fredenberg from Alma and Adam Vanderkoy from Hope. Both those guys had 2 interceptions this past week. And moving on to the more team statistics, the best defensive performances in the state: number 1 SVSU, number 2 Albion, followed by Michigan, Michigan Tech, and Alma. This could be somewhat subjective, given the opponents that you're playing. But we base this solely off of, total yards and points allowed. And then to wrap up, best offensive performances in the state of Michigan week 1. I mean, number one, Saginaw Valley at the top, and you score 72 points. Chances are you're going to have the best performance probably in the nation, unless you're Marion out of Indiana scoring 86, hanging 86 on Madonna. Number 2, Northwood with their win this week. The Northwood Timberwolves had 55 points, and then Albion, Central, and Michigan wrapping out the top 5. So I really enjoyed putting it together. I think it's going to be something that it's going to be a fun talking point every week. And looking forward to it.
Well, with that, let's take a look here at our college games of the week, heading into the second week of college football. We will also be adding to this list Detroit Lions week by week. I don't know if every week, if Detroit Lions will necessarily pop up on this list every week. I guess it'll just kind of depend on who they're playing and what our thoughts are on the game each week for the Lions, if they're playing too. Obviously, if they got their bye week.
There's too much hype to leave them off the list right now.
Right. Everyone's very excited with Hard Knocks wrapping up, which Hard Knocks was wrapping up tonight. So I'm hoping to watch that final episode sometime later this week. Our number one game of the week, we have Hope versus College. College, actually. So we had Hope on our list last week. Hope is back-to-back playoff teams from last year. So they played Aurora week 1, who was a playoff team last year. And now they're playing week 2, who was a playoff team last year as well. What are we thinking, guys?
I'm going to go with Hope again. I think that Hope's going to be riding high off their comeback win this week.
And this is in Holland again, right? Yeah,
it's in Holland again. It is a home game, so I'm going to go with the Dutch.
I am not going to stray away from the Dutch this week. I think they take it to College.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to make it unanimous. I don't hate my pick with Aurora last week just because it took quite a comeback for Hope to win that, but I think after going through that adversity that Hope is going to come back. I think Aurora was a better team than as well. Just kind of looking at some of the common opponents from last year. I think Hope goes 2-0, starts season 2-0. Our next game, we have Ferris State at Lenore-Rhine. Ferris State, I'm assuming still be unanimous. Number 1, did we see Lenore-Rhine, very good football program, goes to the playoffs pretty much every year. Do we see if Lenore-Rhine was ranked?
I don't think they are. No, they are not.
Okay. Brett, what do you think? Ferris State at Lenore-Rhine in North Carolina.
I really want to pick Lenore-Rhine here.
Really? You want to have them pick upset in the number 1 team?
Yeah,
huh?
I mean, Central Washington, Lenore-Rhine. So Ferris State, Ferris played Central Washington last week, who won 8-3 last year. They played them at Top Taggart Field in Big Rapids, and it was a closer game. Now Ferris State's going to go down to North Carolina and play Lenore-Rhine, who also was 8-3 last year. Man, this is a really tough one. I know you guys are both going to pick Ferris State, so I kind of want to keep my edge. So I'm going to pick Lenore-Rhine.
Wow.
Got to do it.
Wow.
Look at Brett.
I'm going to take the Bulldogs. I am believing in Malik Mitchell, GLIAC player of the week.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm going to go with the prove me wrong kind of thing here. I haven't seen anything from Ferris in a couple years to make me doubt their ability. I know 36-20 at home. Maybe some people would think that's a letdown, but that Central Washington team, again, playoff team a year ago, comes to play. And and Brett, I don't think you're far off. Obviously, Lenore-Rhine, very good football team, and Ferris State will have their work cut out for them. But I think Ferris State has just been too dominant. Our next game, GVSU and CSU Pueblo. Is CSU Pueblo ranked? CSU Pueblo has had playoff teams in recent years and is often in the top 25 rankings for D2 football.
Last year they were ranked, but I don't.
Right, they're ranked almost every year.
They're 24.
They are ranked number 24. Okay.
Yeah, they weren't to start the season though.
They upset. So week 1, they beat Midwestern State out of Texas, who was ranked 24. So it sounds like they got into the rankings. Yeah, crushed them.
How about this schedule though? Actually, go ahead, Brett, because I'll talk about their schedule.
Oh, I see. Yeah, holy
shit.
Their
schedule.
They got quite. They have an insane D2 schedule. Their schedule last year was insane.
I want to go against Grand Valley here too, because we should have the rankings in here too, by the way. I want to go against Grand Valley because it's an away game. Colorado
We said
State.
Lenore Ryan was not ranked, right?
Right.
No.
What did GVSU move up to?
They're 5.
But I think I'm gonna go with Grand Valley. They lost by 20 to Grand Valley last year. I think Grand Valley's better this year than they were last year, so I'm gonna go GV.
Grand Valley didn't move up, or they not released the rankings yet? Because they were 5 last week.
Yeah, I don't think anybody lost in front of them, so they didn't.
Right.
They didn't change.
Well, they beat School of Mines, who was number 3.
Number 4, I thought.
Then they had to have moved up.
School of Mines was number 3 last week. GV was 4.
That's not what we had on the sheet, though.
Grand Valley's 5.
It shows them 5. Yeah, it shows 5 on here. I'm gonna take Pueblo. It is a red out at Inbank Field. And then just to reiterate, their Pueblo schedule is absolutely unbelievable. They kick it off with number 24 with Midwestern State. Then they play top 10 opponent Grand Valley State, followed by Western Colorado, who's in the top 20 at 17. They play School of Mines, who was recently number 4. And then you just go down the list, and their schedule just remains hard. So,
Brett, did you say Grand Valley?
Yeah, I said GV.
And Kory says Pueblo.
It's hard to travel out west against a good team that's proven to be good.
Oh boy. I think I'm going to go with GVSU. I think GVSU pulled off a win over a team that in Colorado Mines that I think is likely better than CSU Pueblo. They play in the same conference. When Mines played Pueblo last year, Mines won by 2 scores. So I think Grand Valley will go in, and I think they'll win another close game. 2 Colorado schools back-to-back weeks, 2 really good schools. Then we have Michigan Tech is playing in St. Thomas, Minnesota. St. Thomas, if you recognize that name, St. Thomas, I think we talked about this on the podcast in the winter. St. Thomas was a really good D3 school out of Minnesota for a long time. Made the D3 playoffs many times, made some runs. They might have actually even won a couple D3 national titles. I think before Mount Union made some of their runs. I think like in the 90s or early 2000s, St. Thomas snuck in there, maybe even played Mount Union in the playoffs several times. But St. Thomas has made the move from D3 to 1AA. They are now at an FCS school. They moved up 2 divisions, which I've never heard of that. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that, but I thought that was very interesting. So Michigan Tech will be playing at St. Thomas.
Just a heads up, St. Thomas is in St. Paul, Minnesota, not St. Thomas, Minnesota.
I thought I just said Minnesota.
You said St. Thomas. It's not a big deal. I was just saying.
Davenport essentially moved up 2 divisions, and they had D2.
Yeah. They also took like 2 years off,
yeah.
though.
Well, anyways, not to get too distracted, I'm going to pick St. Thomas here. Michigan Tech only beat a D3 team by 10 points last week.
I'm going to second that St. Thomas pick. Brady Gravold, coaches at St. Thomas. I played in the Michigan All-Star game with Brady Gravold.
Yeah, I think I'll go with St. Thomas as well. That's going to be a tough trip for Tech. And I'd like to say they'd pull it off, but I don't think they will. All right, our last pick of the week here. We're going to include the Detroit Lions game as our 5th game of the week for college/professional. Before we make our picks, do we want to talk Detroit Lions here for a little bit?
Yeah, I can ramble. I can ramble about them for a second. So the Detroit Lions, like Vince had said, is shooting the last episode of
Hard Knocks.
Hard Knocks is ending tonight, so that'll be very sad a lot of emotions. It'll be our last chance to see our almighty leader in his natural habitat. So
Biting
I don't.
kneecaps.
Yeah, biting kneecaps, kicking babies and small animals, all that crazy shit. But just some Lions news. Big V, the right guard, has been placed on IR, so we are going to see another year of Lions football without a fully healthy offensive line. Big gut punch leading into the start of the season. So that's some bad news. But on some good news, we had Eminem at practice, and it seemed like it was hyping up the guys.
I
He
did.
was saying that he would be able to play any position on the field, which is pretty shocking considering I think he's like $160 soaking wet.
He's not a very big.
He's
guy.
also like what 48 years old right now.
He's also
he's
old
50.
as shit.
I think. Yeah, I think he's
he
like
50?
He might be 50.
Yeah, he's old. But in game news versus the Eagles, it'll be a home game at Ford Field, and it is officially sold out. And standing room tickets are going on sale on Wednesday. So, first sold out game since I believe 2017 for the Detroit Lions at Ford Field. Pretty stoked. I think we beat the Eagles. They don't really scare me. Hopefully it's a definitive win and the defense plays well because the defense was also just voted to give up the most points this season by ESPN.
So is that your official pick? The Lions?
The Detroit Lions, baby.
So I really want to see the Lions win, but I try to, when I am making picks, I try to reverse psychology things. There's been a lot of hype this offseason with the Lions, but I also think that hype doesn't just make your team better. You need to have quality players on the field, and I think they are better than last year, but I think the Eagles are better than the Lions, so I'm going to take the Eagles.
Brett, it was nice seeing you on the podcast. People are going to miss you.
Kory's going to murder you in your sleep. I'm going to pick the Detroit Lions. I'm going to ride the Dan Campbell hype train and see what happens. I'm going to roll with my boy MCDC. Motor City Dan Campbell. Go lie downs.
Lions.
All right. So I think that about wraps things up, fellas. Unless you have anything else, we'll transition into the interview here.
Let's hear from Big C Johnson.
Big C. All right. So with that, stay on here and we will get you our interview with Brett's brother, Cole, who is playing offensive line at Central Michigan. So we'll hear from him, his experience transferring from D2 to D1 and what it was like playing down at Oklahoma State. Make sure you stay on and we will wrap things up right after the interview. We're going to go ahead and segue into the interview portion of the podcast here for episode 28. And for episode 28, we have on Brett's brother, no less, Cole Johnson, who's currently an offensive lineman for the Central Michigan Chippewas. He, before grad transferring to Central Michigan, spent five seasons at Hillsdale College from 2017 to 2021, where he was a 4-year starter on the offensive line there as well. Was a 2-time academic All-American and 3-time All-Conference selection. And he's using his last year of eligibility as a grad transfer at Central Michigan. And he just had his first game on the big stage over at Oklahoma State. Cole Johnson, how you doing, man?
Doing well, guys. Appreciate you guys having me on. I've been listening since the start. Since you guys started this podcast and finally made it on.
We've been talking for a long time about when the opportune moment was, because I know Brett a few times talked about having you on when you were doing spring ball and then the summer, and then we kept kind of waiting for the opportune time, so we thought this would be a good one with the big high profile game that you guys obviously just played. But before we get to the high profile game over at Stillwater, Oklahoma State, obviously Central Michigan, if you're listening to the podcast, had quite an offensive showing over there, which we'll talk to you about with Cole in just a second. But before we get to that, we did want to talk with Cole here about his transition, very interesting transition from going from a small college like Hillsdale, which is D2 football, to moving up to FBS, playing for the MAC. Central Michigan, obviously a much bigger school, not only moving up from D2 to D1, but just in general, Hillsdale's a very small Division II college and Central's a pretty big school. So what's that experience been like? I know you were on campus since January, so going on 9 months here that you've been, experiencing Division I football. What's that experience been like, that transition?
Yeah, it's been interesting to say the least. I'd say the one good thing that came out of COVID was I had one more year of eligibility. And I figured, talking with my brothers, talking with my family, they said, well, you might as well do football as long as you can, because you guys can both attest to it now, or all three of you can attest to it now, is you can't really play pickup football down the road. So yeah.
It's done.
Kind of put my name in the portal, and Central Michigan reached out to me and went to their game right after Thanksgiving against Eastern and offered me a scholarship on the team, and here I am. I would say there's a lot of differences between D2 and D1, but at the same time, it's really just football. Talking about the big stage with Oklahoma State, once you're finally out there and you're doing your plays or whatever, you don't necessarily feel the camera on you like you might think in high school or whatever, watching the games. It's really just kind of football. But I'd say the biggest difference is really the support staff. The amount of resources you have at Central Michigan, especially when they came off a really good playoff or bowl win against Washington State. There's a lot of boosters that are really happy with the team and want to continue to kind of grow that team. And at the same time, I'd say that it's the same game, but there's a lot more resources involved with it.
A lot more.
How did it feel playing in front of like more fans in one game than you probably have played all of your Division II career?
Yeah, so we went to a bowl game for Hillsdale, a Division II bowl game in Hobart, Indiana. It
was your last game
at a high school field. So I went from playing in front of about 500
I didn't even think about that
to 55,000. so yeah, that was a big change. But like I said, at the same time, once you're on the field, it's really about the same.
Good.
Football's football at the end of the day. Just going out, throwing on the pads, doing your job.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, within that support staff, it's the extra meals you get, the smoothies, the amount of strength coaches that you have. I mean, at Hillsdale, we had one strength coach across multiple different teams. Here we have like 3 main guys and then three more support staff with that. So there's like six compared to 1 you'd have at Hillsdale. And then also with that, the amount of like graduate assistants, GAs, and support we can have breaking down film. Obviously, you can scheme a lot better at this level, just because there's a lot more people that can do the work, the kind of behind the scenes, compared to say your Division II, Division III's NAIAs.
You got coaches wearing a lot more hats at the lower levels. They have a lot more jobs they got to do, and kind of spread themselves thin. I guess would be the best way to put it. Whereas, at the D1, they can kind of hyper focus on just 1 or 2 things, right? You got a position. I'm sure you guys just have, most major college football teams have just an offensive and defensive coordinator, and that's that's their job. Whereas at D2 and D3, they have an offensive and a defensive coordinator who then are also a position coach. So they don't, you got the GAs, you got the quality control coaches, just extra GAs,
analysts,
right?
And all that.
Their coaches have assistants,
right? Yes, the position coaches. It's nice. That's definitely nice. So, what you got now? So, from what Brett has said, you're starting right now on field goal and extra point. So you did. You got quite a few plays, because Central Michigan scored 44 points on the number 10 team or number 12 team in the country at the time. So obviously, you guys didn't come out with the win, but you had to have felt pretty. We obviously got work to do, but that's got to feel pretty good. Go all the way down to Oklahoma and put 44 points up on one of the best teams in the Big 12, I would argue.
Yeah, we actually ended up giving up a safety as well. So we were always trying to work forward that next point. So I actually only did three snaps.
Okay.
Because we went for 2 so often. So I got 2 extra points and then a field goal. Right. And it actually sounds like I might have a greater opportunity to play within the line this upcoming week, which will be really exciting as we ever hope.
We'll all be at the game, I believe.
Sounds good.
Great Lakes State football.
I won't be able to get you all tickets, but
I was trying to request some as a high school coach online. I'm still waiting for the response to that link, but it sounds like we will be taking Great Lakes State football on the road and watching the Central Michigan Chippewas on Saturday.
Awesome. It'll be definitely a good game. I know South Alabama really prides themselves in their defense, so it'll be really interesting to see how well we kind of stand up against them. Because they played Nicholls State earlier this week or this past week and won 45-7. So
And Nicholls, that's a pretty good FCS school, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Or is Nicholls FCS, or is that a mid-major 1A team?
I think they're FCS, unless they're in like the Sun Belt or something.
Well, I know South Alabama's from the Sun Belt, so I'm not sure about Nicholls State.
I lose track of some of those because some of those FCS schools bounce around a little bit.
Like get real hairy.
Right. Appalachian State was FCS forever. Now they've been, major D1, FBS for a few years now. So I kind of start to lose track of some of those after a while.
I just fact checked it. They're FCS, Nicholls State.
Okay. That's what I was saying, because I thought I remember seeing them in the FCS playoffs here and there. So I'm pretty sure that they're a pretty good FCS program. So opportunity to play, hopefully a little bit more on Saturday, like you're just mentioning. I'm sure that the plan, even though you're not overlooking South Alabama, is hopefully that's a team that, in your home opener that, you can get a lot of guys playing time and hopefully stretch out your depth chart a little bit and work on, getting a lot of guys reps. But what are kind of the thoughts going forward here for the rest of the season? What's the outlook on the season for the team?
Well, yeah, kind of just to open up with South Alabama is our main motto is you don't lose at home. So we have our home opener. So obviously we want to win that. And then we head into Bucknell. That's another home game. So we want to win that as well. And then we have Penn State, and then we kind of enter into conference play. As you can tell by the score, our offense is pretty lethal, and we definitely left some points on the board against Oklahoma State. There's a few drives where we kind of put our defense in a tough spot, not getting the first downs when you're pinned deep, which really kind of put a lot of strain on our defense because Oklahoma State was getting the ball on the 50-yard line, so it's pretty easy to go in from there. So yeah, obviously our goal is to win the MAC championship, and from now we want to go 12-1. So
that'd be pretty awesome.
I'm sorry, 13-1 if you include the bowl game and the MAC championship.
So Cole, you mentioned the lethal offense. It's got to be pretty fun blocking for Lou Nicholls. Maybe you can just touch on that. I know you've even told me before the difference between blocking for running backs in D2 and even Division I. Maybe you can talk about that for a minute.
And that quarterback. The quarterback's a baller too.
Yeah, so that there is a little bit of a talent shift for sure. I'd say the biggest difference between D1 and D2 is the speed, whether that's at the skill position and linebackers. I think linebackers are way slipperier in Division I. And then also the depth. So like our 2D line, there's not a huge drop off compared to what it was at Hillsdale or Division II, just because there's more scholarships at Division I to be thrown around. But yeah, Lou Nicholls is a pretty good running back, and we got two other guys that can also tote the ball pretty well. As you'll probably see, even Miles Bailey, our backup running back, had a pretty good game. He had more limited carries, but had really good production. And then our other running back was actually hurt against Oklahoma State. He was also really good and a good returner. So yeah, I'd say being able to block for them is pretty awesome. I know, Kory, you can probably attest to this, another offensive lineman, like even on our outside zones, we'll put the mic point back and say, all right, we're gonna let number 7 be one-on-one with the safety. We'll just have great angles, take care of the inside box, and you're one-on-one with the safety or corner, we'll take that battle all day.
That's what you could probably do at the D1 level that they wish we could do at the D2 level.
Yeah,
at the D2 level, you're like, all right, this is what we're going to do, but who knows what's really going to happen.
The D2 level, even especially at Hillsdale too, is like we got to take a hat for a hat on every single play.
Yep.
And if one person breaks down, if you have one broken down block, they're making the tackle.
Yep.
It's that speed difference. Yeah, I always tell people that I feel a lot of starters at D2, especially by the time they're done with their career. I mean, some of the best D2 schools, especially in the GLIAC, you see a lot of those starters by the time they're done are they're ball players. I mean, a lot of GLIAC schools have, some of their best guys are playing in the NFL more often than not every year. And then like you mentioned, it's just that depth. There's a huge drop off. I mean, at Hillsdale, Cole could probably attest to this. At Hillsdale, if you have a first string guy go down or even a second string guy, after that, it's probably a walk on. after that, it's not even scholarship guys, or it's a guy that, is
True
maybe
freshman.
I mean, it's just the depth isn't there. So at D1, you got plenty of backups that on full ride that probably could have been starting, at a lot of other schools. But
it's been interesting to see, especially with this COVID now, allowing some of these players to kind of showcase themselves that they may have been more like under recruited and gone to D2 school. Right. I know Finley had a safety that he was tough to block, and he flew all around the place. That actually just went to Purdue and had a pick 6.
Oh wow!
Against Penn State.
Oh wow!
You guys were watching that game. That guy was originally from Finley.
Was that the guy that threw up after he got to pick 6?
Yeah, that was.
And also, your one of your wideouts, Dixon. He's from Northern Michigan.
Yeah, and it seems like even at Central, we've lost quite a few guys to the portal, but they have a kind of almost a dedicated staff towards recruiting and bringing in guys all the time. I mean, our top 3 wideouts last game were all portal guys that were. One was from Maryland, one was from Ball State, and then Dallas was also from Northern Michigan, I believe.
Transfer portal has definitely changed the game of college football in terms of recruiting. That's for sure. It's made it.
I texted Vince and Brett during the Michigan State game, and it felt like every other word out of the announcer's mouth was, and so who came here from X, and it was like, oh my God, like, geez, can you just recruit somebody Michigan State? Peasants? Oh my God.
Well, they have, from my understanding, they have like a staff of like 5 people dedicated only towards portal.
So the transfer portal, yeah, wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, wouldn't surprise me.
So Cole, you mentioned the recruiting. What's it like playing Coach McElwain? He started out at Colorado State as a head coach. I think he started at Alabama first, and then went to Colorado State, and then he was a head coach at Florida for a couple of years, and wide receivers coach at Michigan, and now the head guy in Mount Pleasant.
Yeah, I can't talk him up enough. I really like McElwain, even the only 9 months I've been here. He's one of those guys that's very much a player's coach in a sense where he will relate to you, but at the same time, you respect the crap out of him, and anything that says goes. Overall, our whole entire offensive scheme, he was the offensive coordinator at Alabama, as you had mentioned, and even our practices, even like our off-season lifts, some of the things we do is basically all Alabama. So Saban's had a lot of descendants, and it seems like they all do Alabama things. And our O-line coach, actually, he came in February because the O-line coach that recruited me from Central went to Cincinnati. So he was the center for Alabama when Coach McElwain was offense coordinator there, and he says all the time how this is, oh yeah, we did that at Alabama, or we did one reel where like basically the center calls out the calls in front of the whole entire team. That was done at Alabama. So it's really cool to kind of be a part of something that was basically Alabama's done it and still does it, and here we are doing it as well, and it's had so much success. To say the least.
If somebody says this is what we do in Alabama regarding football, you don't question it.
I think I would shit on the field if they said Alabama did it.
Especially the last 12, 13 years, whatever, since Saban's been there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, all right, Brett and Kory, do you guys have anything else you want to add here for Cole? Otherwise, we'll let Cole get back to doing what he's got to do, get ready for practice tomorrow and practice in class, baby.
Just thanks for jumping on with us. Good luck the remainder of the year. Stay healthy. Never stop blocking, right? That's how you get injured. So,
well, they say the best ability is durability.
Yeah,
that's right,
baby.
Yeah, don't get hurt. We got that Park City trip in March. Can't get hurt.
All right.
Thanks, Cole.
Yeah, Big C, Cole Johnson, lineman from Central Michigan. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for coming on. Brett's brother. Appreciate having
little
you on.
Brother.
Little nepotism here.
Just big double the size.
Brett's big brother. Yeah, little brother, big brother.
I appreciate you guys having me on. Like I said, I was one of your earliest fans. Obviously, I'll continue to listen to you guys, and maybe have me on after we win the MAC.
Yeah.
Well, and we'll have you on when Brett goes down to the Bahamas Bowl, right? That's Brett's hope is the Bahamas Bowl.
From my understanding, I think like the lesser MAC team goes to the Bahamas Bowl.
Oh,
Yeah.
then Brett
I
can't
think,
wish.
I
Brett
think the
can't
better
wish
team
for
goes
that.
to the Motor City Bowl.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
no,
Well-
it's the Barstool Bowl, I think. I was looking at it. It's either the Potato Bowl or the Barstool Bowl.
If you guys go 13-1,
Beautiful.
you might go to a big time bowl. So
We were supposed to go to the Barstool Bowl and play Boise State, and then that was canceled, and then that's
Right.
how we ended up at Sun Bowl.
Yeah.
Right.
But we didn't win a conference last. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, just here's to winning out, winning the whole thing, and then you'll be at a big time bowl, and it won't even matter.
Sugar
And
Bowl or something
We'll,
crazy.
we'll all be there. Great Lakes State football support in Central Michigan, baby.
Sounds good. I'll see you guys.
All right, thanks,
Thanks,
Cole.
Cole.
Nice goal.
Hope you enjoyed the interview there with Brett's brother, Cole, Big C Johnson. Had a great talk with him about his time playing at Oklahoma State last weekend with the Central Michigan Chippewas. So good luck to Cole. We will actually be watching his game. I think all of us will be making it up to Mount Pleasant next weekend for his next game home opener. So go Chips, fire up Chips. For the episode ending here for my recommendation, I do not have a fun fact this week, unfortunately. So I'll just wrap things up with a recommendation really quickly. If you got HBO Max, highly recommend checking out the movie Elvis. Just got added this last week. So my wife and I watched it this weekend. It's a little long at 2.5 hours, but I was actually shocked at how quickly it goes by. It's super, super high energy. It's like in terms of the visual and editing style of the movie, it's super fast paced, flies by in a flash. Really sad movie. My mom had seen it in theaters and told me that she was surprised at how sad it is. I did not realize how depressing Elvis's life was, how he basically got trapped into his residency in Las Vegas by his shitty manager. It's really awful for a very talented and movies exaggerate things, but what seems like a guy who a lot of people, really liked and loved. And he died at 42 years old, man, was just driven into the ground like a workhorse by people who are profiting off of him. So really great movie. Austin Butler, who plays Elvis, is phenomenal. I would definitely recommend checking out. Great music, really good looking movie. And definitely, even though it's 2.5 hours, it's 100% worth your time. Definitely check it out on HBO Max this weekend or when you have a chance. With that, that's my recommendation of the week. That is episode 28 of Great Lakes State Football Podcast. We will be back next week with our recap, the games that are coming up this weekend and previewing the next week. We're rocking and rolling with football here, baby. Please check us out on Twitter at GLSF Ball, Instagram, Great Lakes State Football. Video versions of the podcast are on YouTube. Please subscribe to us there. Check out the videos, give us likes, comments, and all that stuff. Apple and Spotify, you can find the audio versions. Download them, add them to your library. 5-star reviews. Appreciate you. I'm Vince, Great Lakes State Football, episode 28. Co-hosts Brett and Kory. Go Green, go Chargers, go Lie Downs.
Go Blue.
Go Blue.